today, Rinpoche gave another extensive explanation of the benefits of the aspiring mind called the spirit of awakening. Okay. Okay, so we're going to begin where we were the last class. We're going to go over some of the material that we went over already and then move forward. If you turn to page 70, actually 69, and then we'll move to 70. In the English, you'll see a major heading that says maintaining and not weakening what you have attained. So this is in the section, just as a note, on the training the mind in the stages of the path for beings of great capacity, if we're looking at it from the outline perspective. So now we're in the outline under the section of the Bodhisattva vows, maintaining and not weakening what you have attained. So there are two categories in Lama Tsongkhapa's outline for that major heading. First is training in the precepts or the advices that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime, and then training in the precepts or advices that cause you not to separate from your spirit of enlightenment in future lifetimes. So these are the two categories. And then the first category, which is training the mind in the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime, we'll find that there are four major categories. First, training in the precept to recall the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment in order to increase the strength of your enthusiasm for it. Second, the training in the precept to generate the spirit of enlightenment 6 times each day in order to increase the actual spirit of enlightenment. 3, training in the precept not to mentally abandon the living beings for those whose sake you develop the spirit of enlightenment. And 4, the training in the precept to accumulate the collections of the merit and sublime wisdom. So the first category that deals with advices for your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime, those are the 4 categories. And I just went ahead and read them in English. Rinpoche said those 4 categories. He didn't read the full category in Tibetan, but because we will, I just went ahead and read that in the English. Dikson Rinpoche, the Jie Injike Loson.
That's Hajit, you know, the Nyaba Tuba Manyaba Sumala Ni, Send the Sanji Manyaba Jula Labatan.
Lesso.
Joa Jen to Tadamade Jula Labas. Saji Watendua.
Lesso.
Saji to each and way.
Injire.
Inju to Laura.
The Lapsa.
Tambula Je.
Okay.
Sanjila Tuju Pay Shedo.
Lesso.
Pen Temple Labarva. Sanjila Tuju Pay Shedo. Pen Temple Laba. Sanji Mubi is the land trudo, Sanji Balava,
Lesso,
Gangi to Sanji, Sanji Lumabua, so not a J. Sabas, Saji Legend, the ring of Damu.
Lesso. So, under that major heading, so we're going to deal with the category. So welcome, anyone who came. You're welcome to sit anywhere you'd like, wherever you're comfortable. In a chair or on the floor, whatever you're more comfortable with is up to you. There are no rules here. But just welcome, thank you for coming. So we're on page 69 into 70 in the English, training the mind in the stages of the path, training the mind in the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment or spirit of awakening in this lifetime. And then again, there are 4 categories. Training in the precept to recall the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment in order to increase the strength of your enthusiasm for it. The training in the precept to generate the spirit of enlightenment 6 times each day in order to increase the actual spirit of enlightenment. 3, the training in the precept not to mentally abandon living beings for whose sake you develop the spirit of enlightenment. And 4, the training in the precept to accumulate the collections of merit and sublime wisdom. So we're going to begin with that first category, training in the precept to recall the benefits of spirit of enlightenment in order to increase the strength of your enthusiasm for it. So we'll begin with category number 1 today. first category of category number 1. Disa.
어제 다들 동부 다 표현되고 다 가서 어디 진짜여서 진도는 말이야. 상사를 좀 표현해서 말이야.
준주.
어디네. 상사를 좀 표현 아니 손자니 주다니로 골마 진송바들도 상사를 표현 좀 받네스. 상사를 좀 표현 좀 받네. 메시지인비 대래 동부 생지 tempo jebala penyi sondes shin dabar jo da naba me so na yo sun ze bas sajini de
Lesso.
what the me za jin ro na
Lesso. So when we're looking at that first category, we're going to move, because we've gone through this section already, we're going to move right to the second paragraph at the bottom of 70. It says, the benefits mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels are those of the aspirational spirit of enlightenment. So here, the benefits that are mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, so the Bodhisattva levels is one of Lord Asanga's texts, but Lama Tsongkhapa says that the benefits that are mentioned in this text are specific to the benefits of the aspiring spirit of enlightenment. When we divide the spirit of enlightenment, or bodhicitta, into categories, there are 2: aspiring spirit of enlightenment and engaged spirit of enlightenment. So the specific kind of spirit of enlightenment that Asanga is talking about when he speaks of the benefits is the aspiring type of spirit of enlightenment, not the engaged spirit of enlightenment. So Lama Tsongkhapa differentiates here between the two and shows that the benefits mentioned are merely those of that first generation, that aspirational form of the spirit of enlightenment. So it says that there's 2 categories. That text states 2 benefits for the first stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment. One becoming a pure field for accumulating merit, and 2 being fully endowed with protective merit. So these are the 2 categories that you'll find in Asanga's bodhisattvas levels that relate to the benefits of the aspiring spirit of awakening. Digson.
Jiden Lama Jibi Shajan Jurshi, Sen Jimatane, Sen Jen Taji Yunen Sunjuva Dans, Sen Jimatane, Shaju Sen Juli Jimatado, the Sen Jen Taji Yunen Sunjugares, Shasha Yusunjugares, Duari Dukari Bainaya, and Duari Niwa Yeda Dundro, Me Lama Ikari Bainaya, Shaju Sen Juli Jimatado. 네 신다반주는 샤샤 유수주는 그래서 신다반은 좋아 다스 너버매비 생용수제바 사진이 되용도와 샤신다반 좋아宣주래宣주를 송요하레스 제된 함지비 샤샤 주로스 샤주선 줄리지만 타도 제된 하담 함지비 샤샤 유수주는 그래서 세송과 따라 세제마타네 세제타지 주연에 순조와 나스 어디 동부티 설마르바.
So within the first benefit, there are various benefits that are mentioned. So the first benefit that's mentioned, and this is related to becoming a pure field for accumulating merit, is that the moment that you generate the spirit of enlightenment, or bodhicitta, at that moment you become an object of observation that is worthy of reverence for all beings in 6 realms of cyclic existence. So whether the being is in the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, the animal realm, the human realm, the demigod realm, or the God realm, the moment that you generate the spirit of enlightenment, or the spirit of awakening, or bodhicitta, you become revered by all of those types of beings. You become an object of prostration, or an object of homage, worthy of homage, to all of these types of sentient beings. So you become this basis of homage, the basis that is worthy of homage, given by all beings, meaning all beings in the 6 realms of cyclic existence. So this is the first benefit that's mentioned, and then Lama Tsongkhapa quotes from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or Engaging in the Bodhisattva Deeds by Master Shantideva. It says, and are revered both in the worlds of humans and deities. So it's the moment, in the quote, is a moment an awakening mind arises in those fettered and weak in the jail of cyclic existence. They will be named a child of the Sugatas and will be revered by humans and gods of the world. So the meaning of this is that the moment one generates the mind that aspires to enlightenment, they become a child of the Buddhas and are worthy of worship by all beings. Okay, Khensur Rinpoche.
Jidin Lama Jibi Shaji Juro Sirwa. Ta Niba de Sen Jemata Ne, Niran Dajun Jemata Ne, Dajun Ba Dani Chenmo Na Jang, Riji Gune, Seju Neba, Somba Dar, Lama Komanjo Wadans, what Niba de Samarba. Shanju Sen Jul Jemata Do, Shanju Sen Jul Jemata Do, Tiba Chembi Shanju Sen Jul Jemata Do. Nyetu dana nyedi bombi nyetu dana raja gada jomba tezo nga seji nwenegres chidang lanta nyetu raja tejen song yorwa nyetu jilanga raja jilanga teba chembe langa shanju sen juli jema tato nyetu da jomba raja da jomba tezo nga seji nwenegres jisen karasana Nitu Dajun Raja Dajun Moda Ponsari de Sentient Tanji San Tango Mezan, and of course Sentient Tanji Gudun to Shanju to the Sanjiba Inza, the Chane, Sejin and the Gandua. Me by Jachaboro, Sentient Tanji Gudun, Sanju Tuba Shao Nabe, Sanluti Taji, and the Rani Jibu Taba Dogan Sula, what the Sanlu the Mezan, and the Rijugun Sejin Nobas, what the Menra.
Okay. Jason?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
So the second quality is that the moment that the mind that aspires, the spirit of enlightenment or spirit of awakening is generated in a being, he or she at that moment becomes a lineage holder higher than that even of the arhats, of the hearer and solitary realizer vehicle. So the meaning of this is that here, in accordance with the statement that immediately after developing the spirit of enlightenment, you surpass all the great arhats in terms of your lineage, you become superior and highest. So what is the meaning of this? When we look at qualities, we can divide them into various qualities. So we could say the quality of lineage, the quality of realization. So in terms of this is not speaking in terms of realization. This is only speaking in terms of lineage. So why is a being who has generated the spirit of enlightenment, why does a being who has generated the spirit of enlightenment have a superior lineage to that of even a Hinayana foe destroyer? There are 5 paths that we find within the various vehicles. There are 5 superior vehicle paths, 5, I'm sorry, let me try that again. There are 5 hearer vehicle paths, there are 5 solitary realizer paths, and there are 5 bodhisattva paths. So the first 2 are considered pathways of the Hinayana. The latter, is the pathway of the Mahayana. So their pathway names are the same: path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. But in terms of the lineage, the lineage of the great vehicle is a lineage that allows one to become a Buddha. So the object of observation of the lineage is all sentient beings. So the reason for becoming a Buddha is for the sake of all sentient beings. So the object of observation of that being is much greater, is much grander, because it's focused on freeing all sentient beings that exist. Whereas the focus of the lesser vehicle is one's own personal liberation only. So the object of observation of that being is his or her own personal liberation. The object of observation for the great vehicle practitioner is all sentient beings. So it's for that reason that we say that the moment that one generates the mind that is the spirit of enlightenment, the moment that one generates the spirit of enlightenment, he or she becomes of superior lineage to even the Hinayana Arhats. And it's because they enter into the lineage that is much greater in terms of result and object of observation than that of the lineage of the foe destroyer. Even the foe destroyer who has gotten rid of, who is an abandoner of the afflictive obstructions, still only has as her object of observation, his or her final goal, a personal liberation. It's not focused on all sentient beings. So the moment that one's mind generates that sentiment, his or her continuum is a higher lineage continuum than that of the continuum of someone who's even already in nirvana. And it's because of, it is a lineage that becomes a Buddha, whereas the lineage of the Hinayana can only get to nirvana. It's not possible to become a Buddha with the material that is focused on in the lesser vehicle. And it's for that reason that that being's lineage is superior, because it's a lineage that leads to a Buddha, whereas the other lineage only leads to a personal liberation, which still has obstructions to omniscience while one is abiding in it. So there isn't a complete abandonment of all negativities. So it's because of this that we say that in terms of lineage, no matter where a being is on the Hinayana 5 paths, the moment that the great vehicle practitioner is on that first path, his or her lineage is superior to that of any level path, even foe destroyer that a Hinayanist is on. Not in terms of realization, but in terms of lineage. Diso.
Shangchu sembe nyarang seji nyobi chu de la reji gu na seji nyobi chu dang lu gu na seji nyoba ni song yo de oman ju ba na ni song yo de reji gu na seji nyoba se de de shangchu sen ju la jaman ta do nyarang da jong seji nyobi reji gu na seji nyoba as ek example te sha yo da jabi bogu chu chung ju na wa to ko jabi bogu yi zang lo bo ga seji nyobi de res ko jabi ri yi zang jaman ta do Lombi soka seji no degres, jabi bayinza. Kanga jabi bores ya busagro.
Lesso.
Ta lu gun seji no tu maro, ko lojon jene ten tu ma cha na, lombo su lu gun seji no tu maro. Jema lojon jene ma do. Example tana ji shangju ju de san jema ta do nyera reji gun seji no degre. Lu gun seji ka du no gre sana sa ta ba ni ba so ba jiba nga ba truba. Truba mechi dege nyaranta chung lu gun seji no ma res.
Dunba? Dumba.
Dumba ne seji no res.
Lesso.
Truba mechi toni ngosong to ba yo derwa. Lu gun seji mene te nyaran la toni ngosong to ba yo be ser.
Lesso.
Nyaran nyetu da chung da raja da chung toni ngosong to ba yo zang toni ngosong to lu gun seji no ma res.
Then Sadrupa, Sadumba,
Truba
Satsam,
Satsam.
the Lujiguna,
Lugun seji no
the
ma
Satsam.
res. Ta dumba ne seji no res.
Ale.
Dimba ne seji ne jusen kares na shazu me ke tongda ji la chuni la ngwa su pa jo ba da che dang ba ni ga nyu ga res
Lesso.
ne rang ga nyu ga ma res de yi so sa sa dumbe dimba yen che je ni ne rang lu gun seji no ga res so yo re
The Rinpoche, the Sadumba Gariana,
sa dimba yen che ga
Gariana.
dimba je ba go
Okay, Tuchena.
so je ba
Ale. Okay, Tuchena.
de ne re do so lo yang la ban jo ro so de so yo re
Lesso. So we find these two differentiations made between realization or knowledge. I'm going to start using the word knowledge. I think it's better. And lineage. So we find in the Madhyamika Avatara this differentiation that's made. So we say that the moment that the practitioner generates the spirit of enlightenment, his or her lineage exceeds the lineage of that of even a hero or solitary realizer, foe destroyer's lineage. So how do we understand this? Here's an example that we could use. If there is a king, and when the king has a child, that king has the king's lineage. So at that moment, because we in those times, we're looking at times where, and we have kings now, but think of the time this is written in the 1400s. So when you're born into a king's lineage, your lineage is superior to the lineage of other lineages. So at that time, that child's lineage, even though he or she was just born, exceeds that lineage of others who have lower lineage, no matter who they are or what they've done in terms of lineage. But in terms of realization or knowledge, if that child doesn't study and become learned, then they won't have any kind of superiority in terms of knowledge. That doesn't automatically come. That's something that is developed. But the lineage itself of the child becomes the lineage of the king the moment that he or she is born. He or she becomes a prince or a princess. So this lineage would be considered a superior lineage to be born into. So this is what is meant by lineage. This is referring to a lineage that gives rise to a Buddha. So in terms of the lineage, it is superior. But when does the realization become superior? When we look at the different grounds and levels and so forth, there are bodhisattva grounds that occur. And it's not until the seventh bodhisattva ground and if I mistranslated this before, I apologize. It's not until the seventh bodhisattva ground that we can say that that being's knowledge or realization is superior to that of this hearer or solitary realizer, foe destroyer. So it's anything above the sixth bodhisattva ground we can say is superior in terms of realization. So it's I was asking, is that like the border between, is the sixth and the seventh, is that line, the border? And is yes. Is anywhere on the seventh bodhisattva ground that a bodhisattva is, his or her realization is superior at that time to that even of the Hinayana hearer or solitary realizer, foe destroyer. But it's not until then, until it goes, he or she has to go through the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grounds before this occurs. After the sixth ground, once he or she is on the seventh ground, then his or her knowledge is superior and lineage is superior. But the moment that there is the generation of this spirit of enlightenment, his or her lineage is superior because it is a lineage of the Buddhas. Even though the afflictive obstructions have been abandoned by the being who is already a foe destroyer, he or she is not a Buddha. So his or her lineage led to only that, whereas the lineage of the Buddha leads further. So it's a superior lineage because of the potential result. So sorry if I put it in a lot of ways, but it's important that the material is understood as Rinpoche speaks it, and sometimes that requires more English than Tibetan. Digsung Rinpoche.
다 송바 소나 총고시 제장 송바 어든면 소나 총고시 다 간다 가도래 니바 송바 담 어든 양지베 자나레 양지베 송바 소나 총고시 제장 제부 타이반 진비 소나 지신당 지된 타지 땐비 사다보스 셰송바 따르 저군나지 파던라와 요와오스 어디 송바레서 송바 상주 선배 소나 최종시 사바 있나요? 최종시 세장 최종시 사바 있나요? 제부 타이바 연구레스 타임바 진비 소나지 신당 ane jiden tangji tenbi sadaburi sadabo shesomba 따라 jigu tangji je padandawa juwa os wadi nipa diredi sha nipa
This Sumba?
nipa de kale odin deshe jagu do
Niran Ranjel de Nipa.
shangchu sembe wadi sona shushun saba ina rebu chim mambu yungu res
Leso.
rebu chungu shi she 소나 중국시 세장 레버타이 반진비스 ane 소나지 신당 지된 당지된 비사타부레스 제송바 따르 된도 인지로다
Leso. Padandra.
저거나지 파단다 주어 오서 어때 니바리 송바
Sumba.
니바
Tambo the Tambo Shunjulong.
니바지 송바레
Sumba. The Tranka Kema Chikshina the okay, so
송바레
the
소나
third
중국시
is
되는 송바레
okay, so number 3 is even when you perform a small meritorious action, it gives forth limitless effects, so you are a field for accumulating merit. As all the world relies on you, you are like the earth. Thus you are like a father to all beings. So this is the third point of benefit that is made in this first category, is that even if you do a very small thing, if you engage in a small amount of merit, that merit becomes a great amount of virtue if you have this aspiring spirit of awakening. So it says that again, just as a note, this is a Sangha's benefits mentioned about the aspiring mind that aspires to enlightenment, or aspiring spirit of enlightenment. This is the third point that's made under the first benefit, that you become a pure field for accumulating merit. So when you perform something very small, when you have this spirit of enlightenment, the virtue is increased a great amount because of this presence of bodhicitta. Diksun.
어 가서 돌 던지 송요로다 제타르 에그자브로 제타 자수치나 추티 따르 자수 먹어봐 되면서 추 자수나로 추티바 사나 자수도 먹어봐 되세요 말was 상지게 에그자브 잡 말이야 자수 먹어봐도 되면서
Leso.
대신 상추 양은 그와야 상추 마도 받되면서 그와 주중질이 매나야 세제 단지게 돈 상주 고분도 중고사야나 상주 고분마도 주받을 레버 가지 베제나 누구 말이야 레버 몬도야
Leso.
다데 what doesn't 잡으면 돼.
So it's very similar to what the Buddha stated in the sutras about dedication, where the Buddha stated that just like a small drop of water being put into a bucket, into the ocean, is not extinguished until the entire ocean is extinguished. Likewise, a virtue that is properly dedicated to becoming a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings is not extinguished until it becomes a cause for that great result. So we see the magnification of a small virtue, even in that quote by the Buddha, is showing that no matter how big or small the virtue you've created is, if it's properly dedicated, it magnifies it and makes it create something that's magnificent. And in this case, we're speaking of Buddhahood. So we can look at the reason for that to be similar to the point being made here. So the reason that potency delivers that result is because what it's dedicated to, becoming a Buddha for the sake of sentient beings. Because of that potency of dedication, it makes that magnify. So it's similar to this.
어제 당아서 가신 저 그건 잡으면 돼. 런던에 관계심이 다녀지 사지신나 민간게 리젠다 군간데 지된 걸라 표에 거기 담을 해야지 돼. 상주드는 산주는 처번는 처버 봐서 어떤 좀 돼. 관계심이 다다냐베 사지신가 걸로 모두라서 처버 표발래. 네. 관계 담을 해야 돼. 상주그 산도 공부이나 소나들이 치그레스. 소아부터 준다고 돼.
Landun.
런던은 관계 시민 다녀지 사지신나 민간게 리젠다 군간데 지된 걸라 표에 관계 담을 해야지 돼. 상주드는 산주나 처번는 처버 봐서 달라 타는 마치소스.
So we find a very similar point
란도 고도 예로 고도
made in the lamp for the path to enlightenment.
슈가 네버
So Rinpoche is saying that everyone has that in front of them. So I'm just going to find the quote, Gangi, the quote exactly.
라소.
I think it's number Shiloka Gangi. Ganshi Tapni. No, that's not it. Cheek 10.
네 줄로가 줄도 줄도 시스템 넘바 시스템 넘바 관계신이 전에제 사지신의 미관계 리젠다 군관데 지된 걸로 배워 관계 탐지제데 샤추도는 산도나 온다 시스템도 시스템
16 and 17.
어떤 마kal레로도 고카부모도 도도
So it's very similar when we look at stanza number 16 and stanza number 17. We find this point made. If someone were to fill with jewels as many Buddha fields as there are grains of sand in the Ganges to offer to the protectors of the world, this would be surpassed by the gift of folding one's hands and inclining one's mind to enlightenment, for such is limitless. So if we look at page 26, everybody, page 26, stanza number 16 and stanza number 17, we find it there.
So we
can see, we can understand the meaning of this. We can see how beneficial this mind is to us, would be to us.
소나 지신다 지된 타지 내비 사다고 셰송바 따르 저거나 저 받은 저와 셰송바 따르스 사다고 셰송 어디 다 저거나 저 받은 저와 지바레스 지바 저거나 저 받은 저와 지바레스.
Okay, so number 3 is this point of merit being expanded, and again, it stanza number 16 and 17 in Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, where we find those stanzas. And the fourth benefit, Rinpoche is saying, is that thus you are like a father to all beings. And then it's Sadanjara, the Jipa. Okay, so number 4 includes, as all the world relies on you, you are like the earth. Thus you are like the father to all beings. So that would be in number 4.
다 동불 제대로 제제 동불 제제 다 니바 너바 매비
Go.
줄 고래도와 고도와 니바
Okay, Sabosha. So the first category, so now just for all time's sake, the first category, which is the first benefit, becoming a pure field for accumulating merit. There are 4 categories in Jayan Sheba's commentary. First category being you're revered both in the worlds of humans and deities. You become an object of worship for all living beings the moment you generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Second category, your lineage surpasses that of even the foe destroyers here in Solitary Realizer. Third category, a small merit becomes great. And the fourth category is that you become like the ground or the earth because you are a father, like a father or a parent to all beings. So these are the first category has 4. Now the second benefit, which we're saying the second category, has 9 points that are going to be made. So this is all according to Jayan Sheba's commentary, which we don't have in English. We're just Rinpoche's using it, and I'm translating it as we go. So when we'll hear different outlines, Lama Tsongkhapa's own personal outline, and then also another outline that we're following in a different text by Jayan Sheba, not in English. Okay, Digson.
어제 다 니바들 자지 고디고도
Less so.
사제고
Less so.
니바 메비출로 골레스
Less so.
다고도 담보든마 콜루지 잡아서 레옹레
Less so.
고고노 담보
Less so. Okay, so the first of the 9 categories in Jayan Sheba's commentary, under the major heading, being fully endowed with protective merit, is that you are always protected by guardians that are twice as numerous as those of a universal monarch. So this is the first category, that you become protected when you develop bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment, even more so than a universal monarch. Digson.
어다 니바 메비센 어디 고지 담보데 콜루지 잡어
Less.
콜루지 잡어 주제 송마니 주제 다도 송유 송배 니로강 현상 파매바 저바나 내지나 마마임 뇨마네바 나지 츠메니바오스 어데 동부들도 다 콜루지 잡으데 콜루지 잡을 송마몽비 말보다 그 니로방 안치 세마드번 차바이나야 네 젠다는 도 말레스
Less so.
소마가 송도 그래서 어디 송도 인사
Tambo.
담보지
Okay, so the first category, as you are, okay, so the second benefit, being fully endowed with protective merit, is as follows. So the first category starts here. As you are always protected by guardians that are twice as numerous as those of a universal monarch, you cannot be harmed by yaksas or local spirits, even when you are sleeping, drunk, or careless. So once you generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or the spirit, okay, once you generate the spirit of enlightenment, at that moment, you are protected by these guardians. And it says that a universal monarch is surrounded by these guardians or soldiers or protectors. And there are a large amount of them. The moment that you generate this mind, you are protected by guardians more numerous than that of a universal monarch, and spirits and humans and non-humans and so forth can't harm you because of this protection that the bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment, gives you. Digsun.
다 니바 상하던 세드로 니바 상하던 세드 니바레자 장지보 어디 니바
So the second category deals with secret mantras.
상하도 가도 들어가서 가서 주디제 요아르스 샤유주 쉐비주 nenjulaname juji marbe
Lesso.
je ode judije judije ode sanga seadle.
So secret mantras refers to the mantras that are found within the 4 classes of tantra: action tantra, action tantra, performance tantra, yogic tantra, and highest yogic tantra. So these are the mantras that are found within these tantras.
다 주디제 자수 가서 가서 ode 도와지 차는 시들로 다들
Lesso.
야자 현다지 와르다. 장다 시치 차는 샤유주디 잡아인스. 샤주르지 네 또도 고발라 소바데 추가 땅바이나 저주르 땅바이나 어데 네 또 몸은 제구로 어데 장다 제구로
Sandra K-Chen.
장다를 뒤비 주들라 샤유주. 장다 시치와 되바 인선 샤유주. 장다당 나기 땡은 이갈 때부터 쉬비주. 나기 땡은 집을 때부터 내 되면 가자. 내줄라
Sandra dang Tenzin Yamdu? Shuju.
자주도 또 스탠다드 토레스.
Sandra Tso. Okay.
대찬의 잡이
Leso.
주들라 샤유주. 샤와 장마제고레스. 샤와 장마가 차네. 장이 차네 잡이 주들라 샤유주. 쉐비주나 나게 땡은 제타샤 샤와니갈 때되게 쉐비주. 아니 나게 땡은 시체와들라. 내주주의 말에 나게 되는 코날 되버데 라나메 비주 하리는 어디 뭐라지 니송요래다 가정 도와지 들어왔다더니 상다기 차네 상다 수지 차네 주디지 야주시 송요래
Okay, then they negate the Selpo Lago, the Tambo Sama, Nipa Sama dang Tenzin Yamdu, the Sumba Tenzin Kuna,
시체와
Dets Shechewa,
저 라메 주디 땡은 코날 땡으로스
Tenzin Kuna. Okay. Nejolana Mepeju Tenzin Kuna. Okay. Only. Okay. So why are there 4 classes of Tantra? So we have action Tantra, performance Tantra, yogic Tantra, and highest yogic Tantra. So last week we spoke about the 4 levels of bliss, or the 4 levels of happiness that correspond with these 4 categories of Tantra. So we explained the numbers of Tantra in that way. They correspond with the levels of bliss or degrees of bliss. Another way that the 4 classes of Tantra can be explained are in terms of its procedures or rituals or focus. I guess focus would be the best way to explain it. So action Tantra, all of the actions or activities that are performed within this particular Tantra are focused on cleanliness. So cleanliness is the primary focus of action Tantra. In terms of the actions, are cleanliness. One is thinking of cleanliness. The next category, performance Tantra, it is said that there is kind of a dual focus, a focus on this cleanliness that's united also with an inner concentration. So the focuses are kind of equal. So this focus on cleanliness and inner concentration are equal. The yogic Tantra, it is said, has a little more focus on inner concentration than the performance Tantra that has this kind of united focus on cleanliness and inner concentration. Whereas this yogic Tantra focuses now more so than the performance on an inner concentration. And then highest yoga Tantra only focuses on this inner concentration. So this is another way to divide up the 4 classes of Tantra in terms of reason for enumeration. So this is another way to explain it. And just as a translator's note, there's an enormous amount of information. I know it doesn't make sense focusing on cleanliness, but what that means, you have to read the whole Tantra to really understand what that cleanliness refers to in terms of emptiness and so forth. So this is just a real brief outer explanation that can be looked more into. But just as a translator's note, there's a lot more to understand than just it's clean and its concentration. What that clean means is really specific. This is another way to divide up the reason for enumeration of the Tantras. Digsung Rinpoche.
다 송바 링하도서 송바 장지 사지 송바 딩도
Oh, the logo, Gongyal Mepachik. So the secret mantras and knowledge mantras that can cure epidemics, injuries, infections, but are not effective in the hands of living beings become effective when someone with a stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment uses them. Why mention the mantras that do work when used by living beings?
Let's
go to the Bodhisattva levels. Okay, so yeah, so this here is specific to the mantric vehicle and saying that without this spirit of enlightenment, it doesn't work. So it's saying that the spirit of enlightenment is necessary for these mantras to work. And it's saying that imagine how good the other things that don't require it will work. Imagine how much better the things that don't require the spirit of awakening will work if it is the only thing that works for these secret, more subtle vehicles. So the spirit of enlightenment is a qualification for secret and knowledge mantras to work. Number 3.
somebody
Is 3?
ringa ji yang dang
2.
ne ba dang nan go she wa she bas yang dang nga so do de nasa mo do pe nasa de pamul do ya pamul nasa pol do ya nasa gun de mo do wa to su ha nya le ya bu na ka tu re se ta yang dang de ne ba ma da ma ma yi ne ba ka tu re nan go she wa she ba nengo de nasa tsebe gonde ya de na wa to su ka to gre shewa sheba thaje je la na duba ma ruba na jang ne di la do one ruba jona ruba ta jemes ane wa ruba ta jemen ta ka de chalan de ya bun de chi ya thoya de ba yo ba ina wa de kha nya la ya ba in ti la ba le la ba le ngure este ru ngure este ma ruba na jang di la do one ruba jona ruba ta jemes ne ruba ta jemes jona sa ma ba yong yo na ane ta da tu ba ke cha yo ma res ma ba ta ke cha ro ta tu ba ke cha yo ma re ma ba ne tu res ta chit ta jeme den ni shwala su bi le su jang sa ji den na lu la den be tu mo ngo du ba la de yue na nyo wo shang ju san de yue ba yin na shang ju san de shwala su bi shi le ce dan so na je ba de ne ce dan ne shwala su ba ne de da ne de ba che she ba tene dag sedon sona jeba jebile sona ya jeba sheya wo tu ngalo de shangju san gong na wo de le la bu yong re se sedon sona jeba ane jen on de ya shangju san de na jen on de ne res on ge tele marba on ge tele tene trabi go ne ba je ne trabi le droit de ba ba ina shangju sen de na trabi le de le la bu yongres trabi le shi le jibi le ongi le trabi le wo to su le la bu yongres to mo ngo du la de yue na nyo wo to mo ngo du chirin wa da ne me ba la so ba wo to su ngo ha la de ne du gi na shangju sen de na nyo yo gres yue na nyo wa wo ne ga na de phe mo so do ne ga na ne ba tre ya ji de ba dan ji ba da ji ban jo wa da ma ga da ma ma yin je ne ba ma jong wa dan ha ba ko che ne yue sa de lo de ne ba yong tu me me ro a
The kanga, the somba, the ringa,
somba
kanga,
somba re
ringa. Okay.
ya
So, decent.
na ga na ne ba de ya da ga de ha ba ne ba yo ga de ka ba de ba yin na ya sa shu de len ji ba yong ma re ji ba jo ta tan ji ba yong ma re ma ba ne ji ba yong ma re ne ma ge yong ma re ma ma yin ba dong de la su de ne ba
Okay.
ne ba ma jong wa da ma jong wa na ma jong shin ne ba ma jong wa no yong ma re shong wa na jang jo bu ga no re she wan jo ro so de song ba de re mu do ya bu do tu so ka le lu
Okay. So, just for clarification purposes, the second category is specifically secret mantras, And then the third category is knowledge mantras. So it breaks down into that. So it says secret mantras and knowledge mantras. And then it speaks of secret mantras first that can cure epidemics, injuries, infections, but are not effective. So the first category is being protected by the guardians and so forth, more so than a universal monarch. The second category is secret mantras. So secret mantras only work if they're in the hands of a bodhisattva, someone who has the spirit of enlightenment. So that can cure epidemics, injuries, and infections, but are not effective in the hands of living beings, become effective when someone with a stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment uses them. So stable generation means an actual spirit of enlightenment. The actual generation of bodhicitta has taken place, not a facsimile of or something like it, actual bodhicitta. So that's why it says, with a stable generation of spirit of enlightenment uses them. Why mention mantras that do work when used by living beings? Now, the next part is about knowledge mantras, and that's the second category, the third category, according to Jayan Sheba's commentary. And it says, the Bodhisattva levels teaches that when your spirit of enlightenment is stable, you also easily accomplish the collections of actions, pacification, and so forth. So when we look at the various actions the holy beings engage in, there are four: pacification, subduing, increase, and wrath. So all of these actions become potent if one has this spirit of enlightenment. So it ignites it, if you will. It gives it its potency. It makes it work. So it says, then it goes into some of the benefits. So if you have this, you also quickly accomplish ordinary spiritual attainments. Wherever you are staying, there will arise no fear, no causes of fear, no famine, and no harm from non-humans, and you will quell those that have already happened. The Sumba Kabar Kagadu, Tamagare, Juro, the Juro, Zhongwa Nam Shiwa Juro. Okay, so it ends there. So after death becomes the next category, if anyone's reading along. So category number 3 ends where the break, according to where it says 328, that's where it ends.
Lama ji doing that ji bless ji take dota. The dinner ji dead hang dota. Then so you nyale ji ba ine tere agrota. Do re dota.
Ale. The ringago
nyale ji na. On the pen the young race. Nasa go mare. And ji mo pen mo sung dota. And then Lama doing the dedule. The nyadu dead pen dota. So when we look at what the true protection is, we can see that it's really your own practice is how you protect yourself. It's your own spiritual practice. Yes, it is beneficial. You see, people come to a teacher and they are given protection cord or given some sort of blessing by a teacher. And yes, this can be beneficial and can be potent if this teacher has these qualifications, because we see it makes these blessings potent, potency of the blessing possible if he or she has this realization. But we see really the true protection is our own practice. If we were looking for a real protector, it's our own spiritual practice. So we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. The text says that Tantra can be just like a snake. If you don't know how to handle it, a snake handler, you can easily get bit and poisoned. So
there's a great amount of trouble in practicing Tantra without understanding it or having a proper basis. It's like handling a snake, but not knowing how to. You can get bit easily.
I'm still getting it confused with the rope, so.
That's because you're in the dark.
샤주 센터 니지다 돈이도 비시라다 사고가 그냥도
So it's necessary to take the meditation on emptiness and wisdom, the meditation on the mind that aspires to enlightenment or the spirit of enlightenment, and unite that with meditation on deities. So it really, there has to be this union of all of these foundational practices in order for there to be any kind of tantric or deity practice. So it's necessary to have these foundationally.
어제 당 아주 송발해 말아. 지바로 지바. 지바 츠페 오드여서 지바래 지바.
Less so.
그래서 이 장가 되고.
So now we're at number 4, and we're on page 71 still in the English. In Tibetan, we've just changed pages. Sepu. So we're on the death.
지바 츠페 오드여서 당 아주 남바 상집에 시송나야 저 저월랭 그래서 그러다. 저월랭 그래서 그러와. 남바 상집에 저 가마 위해서 그래. 저 셔마 위해서 그래. 예수바스이나 사교수 버려서 말이야. 힌두당, 예수당 안에 마즈마도 도속에 사교수 바이당 가마한테 셔마 시고 말에. 남바가 저 가마 요아래. 시제 다질 저 가마 요아래. 저 가마 요바서도 마세 저왕 하마를 도마매버렸어. 시제 단지가 저를 도마매버려. 인다 시제 단지랑 그 말이었어. 어떤 시 말봐.
So in order for one to understand this next point that's going to be made, we have to establish this beginningless rebirth. We understand that like ourselves, all sentient beings have beginningless rebirth. So therefore, we have to establish that all sentient beings are our mothers. So in order for us to really understand and utilize this next point, it's necessary to establish this beginningless rebirth based on the idea of this continuum.
So what's
the reason? Less so. Less so.
대시방 하마를 용어res. 어디 바두이 시바는 저거도 바두이 시바를 용어res. 바두이 시비 보고 시바도 가네 용어 띵 하마를 용어래. 띵 하마는 시바를 도마 매버래. 저발을 도마 매버래. 진짜 참말들이스.
So how is this established? What is the point? We have a consciousness at this moment. And at this moment's consciousness comes from a previous moment's consciousness. That comes from a previous moment's consciousness. That comes from the consciousness of the intermediates. If we look at the consciousness and trace it back to when we're born, the consciousness before that is the intermediate state's consciousness. And we look for what is before that, we find the previous life's consciousness. So when we begin to examine consciousness, we find that we can't establish a beginning. So we have this beginningless consciousness that comes from a previous consciousness, from a previous consciousness, from a previous consciousness. So because we have this beginningless consciousness, we can posit beginningless birth. So by positing beginningless birth, then we say we have these beginningless mothers and so forth. This is how, as Buddhists, we would establish this beginningless nature of rebirth. We would start with the consciousness and establish the beginningless nature of consciousness and so forth, because we can't say that the child got its consciousness from the mother, that the mother's consciousness is the child's consciousness, because it's not the same consciousness. It doesn't contain the same thing. It's something different. So where would it come from if it's not the mother's? It came from a previous consciousness, from a previous consciousness. And as a note, when I say previous, of that consciousness, a previous moment of that same continuum, from a previous consciousness, from a previous consciousness. Non-consciousness never caused that consciousness to occur. So it's always been caused by a previous consciousness, and we can trace it back. We trace it back this life, intermediate state, previous life, intermediate state, previous life, intermediate state, previous life. So before, before, before. And this is how we would establish it in terms of beginningless nature of rebirth. Diksung.
다 똑같아요, 알았어.
Then maybe some
파말레
doubt.
집에 인자 파미 쉐바도 부귀 쉐바레 면로서 도와요, 알았어. 파미 쉐바도 부귀 쉐바레 그 말이었어. 요새 가르스나 파마 신여제이나 부귀 신여제이 쉐바요 말이었어.
Less so.
파마 신여 매발 보고 intelligent was.
Less so.
What the law was.
So a doubt may arise, and you say, why can't it come from the parents? Why isn't it the parents' consciousness? Because we can see that what the parents, if that were the case, then what the parents know, the child would know. What the parents would have an aptitude for, the child would have an aptitude for. But we see that that's not the case, that the consciousness and the things that it knows and excels at or is not good at are not the same as that of the parents.
What the cerebral tegudo, cerebral to Kalagas, and
So we would have to then ask what a scientist would say about this.
Jongo onbilo dan ragizela temeji, on jongo dal jidure, onbi dal dure, shebag dal dure, down the sungubere. Danga the Jama tabi machuji, shebang among the sheba imbeser, sheba jin imbeser. Jama tabi machuji, ne ombung among the ombujin imbeser. On jong among the on jong imbe down the sungur. Someone know what not down the sungur.
So how do we establish ourselves with signs and reasoning this beginningless birth? And in the Pramanavartika Karika, Dharmakirti's commentary on the Compendium of Valid Cognition, we find 3 signs that are given to prove this. It states that the wind, or the breath, the sense powers, and the consciousness arise from that which is in the lineage of it. It does not arise from a dissimilar class. So its arisal doesn't come from something which is not it. A dissimilar class doesn't produce something that is it. So something which is different doesn't produce that. So something that is different from that can't produce that. So it can't come from a dissimilar class. So the breathing in and out came from previous breathing in and out, and that the consciousness from previous, and that the sense powers from a previous. So we would say, how can we say that this human has beginningless birth? We could say because this human is this person. How can we say that this person has beginningless birth? We can say it's because this person is a possessor of sense powers. He or she is a possessor of consciousness, and he or she is a possessor of breath or breathing. And those things came from things that are of a similar class, not a dissimilar class. So breathing came from a previous breathing that came from a previous breathing that came from a previous breathing. And we find beginningless breathing. Then we do the same with consciousness, and we find beginningless consciousness. And then we do the same with sense powers, and we find beginningless sense powers. And because this person is a possessor of among those 3, or those 3, he or she also has to have a beginningless birth. That person has to have beginningless birth. That consciousness, the I. So we have So we have bones and we have flesh. Where do the bones come from? Where does our flesh come from? So we're not sure, but we could maybe say that it's the rugu. The bones come from the father, father's side, perhaps we could say.
차도 차도 비지 막 거는
And the blood and flesh come from the mother's side.
어떤 것도 도와줘야 돼.
But there's doubts here with this. We have doubts.
버절로 온종도 세바다 엄부 이제 땅다 송송고요.
Let's-
안는 가서 요구도 차도 어도 송걸로 다시 땅을 강간 잡으려면 돼.
So we look at these three classes, the breath, the sense power, and the consciousness, and we arrive at this beginningless state of each among those. So if we had to discuss flesh and bones, or blood and flesh and bones, and if we analyze them, we would come up with the same basis. We would say it came from a previous, from a previous, from a previous. So that's how we would debate it and would arrive at whatever conclusion was arrived at.
어디 저 가만 그도 어디는 말이야. 다 신의 저와 정말 노래서. 저와 정말 요래서 저와 정말 요래서. 저와 정말 요 주생 가르스나 근데 어디
So here, this is how we establish previous lives. But then, if there's death and previous, we have to then establish future lives somehow.
give 시간라면 주지 리바 주의진라 그래.
The
all people 시간라면 요로.
yeah, at the time of death.
리바 주의진. 이제 정말 상자들 저와 정말 마찬가지로 그래서 네 차제지리바 임베지 나는 그 땅도 듣고 그랬다.
And Megane,
여자도 집에서 봐 임비셔스. give 시간라면 주지 다 all people 주지 시바 주의진라 그랬다. 시간라면.
Lesso, Chuchan.
Treat barula with gander. The church, Rebashima Sanjad, Rebashamal Mandugres, Jusen Carasana, Dosha Jibi Riba in Beages.
Okay. So we can say that the consciousness and that an old person has at the time of death. So the subject, that consciousness that he or she has at the time of death, will it be furthered? It will be furthered because there is the presence of attachment. If there's the presence of attachment, then it will be furthered, being attached to a next.
다 퍼센트 꿰버다. 퍼센트 꿰 세금도 다. 아주 상당 세배이나. 아니 세계 사말을 된다 되네. 몇다도 사말 보고 뭐 정도야. 보고 뭐 정도야.
Yes.
시계도 정으로 말도 마시게 줘야 말로 신의 정으로.
Less so. So we have so many people not only dying, but also then we have beings being born. What is happening here? And we can say that beings that pass then are beings that are born. And just as a translator's note, I don't want to mistranslate. We're not saying there's directly, this person dies, then that means it's him, he's, her. It's saying that beings die in a very general sense, and it could be an ant as well. So just as a translator's note, beings die. Where are those beings? They are the beings that are born. And the beings that are born, where did they come from? They came from the beings that died.
어때 그래봤대 퍼센트 시야도 자네. 사는 뭐 못하는
So to understand just one-liners that we read in a book here, it requires a large amount of analysis to really understand the point that's being made here.
어때서 다 terrible 지구도. terrible.
This is something we would ask scientists to do.
신의 저하시마 요리요 말했어.
So if you die, is there or isn't? So we would say to a scientist, when you die, is there a future? Yes or no?
저하시마 매나 보고 뭐 지용도 수정으로서.
So if there's not a future, where are these new children that are being born coming from? So we can see how solid and stable the Buddhist texts are in terms of use of logic and use of reasoning. It's the same as a scientist. So scientists are scholars, and we will eventually meet with this discussion. Meet with this discussion.
shi wu de yang tene wo de ne ba nyu nyu re shi wu de yang ne ba nyu xin ra ji ji ne me ba na ta nyu nyu ne ba shu na yang ne ba shu na yue de bu da yue de bu yung ma re to ma to ne ba da bu yung ma re ne ba nyu xin ra ji ji ne me ba da ne ba shu na yue de bu da Tabu Mandeba dance, Nova Tabu, Nasa Tabu and Dega Mares. What about the Jiba? The Jaji did Naga Sajid Jindo, the Abbot.
Okay, so number 4, also, I just want to make sure where this ends. Rinpoche, Nyampar Mijoro, Tsar, Jiba?
Sumbaro, that Jiba Tsipi on the Jibare.
Okay, so also, after death, you will have little trouble and you will be naturally healthy in your next life. Even if someone harm does arise, it will not last long. Let me try that again. Also, after death, you will have little trouble and you will be naturally healthy in your next life. Even if some harm does arise, it will not last long or be severe. When you engage in the welfare of living beings, giving teachings, etc., your body will not feel tired, you will not be forgetful, nor will your mind degenerate. So here, these are all benefits, number 4, of this mind that aspires to enlightenment.
Ngaba chudne ba so ta gi shawa chudne ba ta ne chuju gi le ane shawa mo ji ya yoro ta khane ji ya ta chudne ya ta o de chu ya ta ne mo yoro chudne ba so si ji ji ta la ju ba na sa ju ba na le me ne shin le ka ngai mo ma res ne je ne ba da sen ya ba mo yoro je ne je ba ko mo ma phagat
Less so. Okay, so just a break point. I read too far. So number 4 ends, also, after death you will have little trouble and you will be naturally healthy in your next life. Even if some harm does arise, it will not last long or be severe. That's number 4. Number 5, when you engage in the welfare of living beings, giving teachings, etc., your body will not feel tired, you will not be forgetful, nor will your mind degenerate. That's just the break point between 4 and 5. The meaning of 4 is, as written, that even if you do have some sort of harm that comes, it'll be very short, it won't last long. And then number 5 is that when you're engaging in the welfare of others and helping others and then giving teachings, etc. So if you're helping others in any way, the highest of which would be giving a teaching, but in any way, you don't get tired doing it. You won't forget the material you have to teach, and so forth. So your mind will be stable and increase, never degenerate.
That Druba Shansen Rila never Druba Danma Shansen Rila never ne.
Less so.
Rajin Ji Jam.
That's it.
Nengele Nuan Yilas. Senjinane, Ludan Senji Nengele, Shindu Nuan Juros, or the Druba de Redoa. Shansen Rila never, Kazonga to the Hiji Chembel Jawundus, Shuimba.
Less so.
Teaching to resavers and Hiji Chembel Julius Muna, Teba Chembi Resay Shansen Rila never Fiji, Hiji Chembi Jula Jibal in Jide. Shansen Rila never nes, Hiji Chembi Julius Muna, Rajinje, Nengala no Nata Nuno, Kali Mebere Wurs, Nengala, Nuan in Las. Sentient Tajik no Zub Hajukum Tuba Shao Nabe, Senjana, Ludan, Senji Nengala, Shindu Nuan Juros, Senji Julius Muna, and the Nasala Zuba Shindu Nunes, Nuan Juro. What about the Truba and Truba? Kazungazo, what the Shansen really never need Chimbalja, 샤선 지리 제당 상지 그리 가도로 뭐시 봐 라진에 제주 그리다 어떤 산다인 봐
So, if you are one who abides in the Bodhisattva's lineage, you naturally have few dysfunctional tendencies. Once you have developed the spirit of enlightenment, the dysfunctional tendencies of your mind and body are extremely slight. So one who abides in the Bodhisattva lineage is, the Bodhisattva lineage is ignited when he or she generates great compassion. It's a specific category of compassion. And so when great compassion is generated, then he or she and ignites that lineage of the Bodhisattva. And it says that you naturally have few dysfunctional tendencies once you have developed the spirit of enlightenment. So once you have a mind that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, a permeated mind of that, at that point, then these qualities arise. And it says that the negative qualities of your mind and body become very, very slight once this great compassion ignites the Bodhisattva lineage. Jiro Zupadan Tepa. Okay, Digson.
어다 상지비 어디 세제 다지기 주로 상지기 리유로 리 상지리 세제 삼마 상지야 요아레스 녀아바 상지야 요아레 예다 상지야 요아레 돈도 상지야 요아레 맞다라 참말로 상지야 요아레 상지기 리기 쳐도 요아레스 저 샤망고 줄라메 노상권의 최제다 대신에 매세다 리유신나 뢰쟁고 다도 상지 예비jen스 다도 시제 다제 상지기 예비jen 상지기 리유아레스
And the Bechagare?
론도 줄라메 줄 저 샤망고 노상권의 최제다 대신에 매세다 리유신나 뢰쟁고 다도 상지 시제 다제 줄 상지기 리유에 다운다 송고도 노상권의 최제다 대신에 매세다 리유셔 다송권의 시제 다제 줄 상지기 리유아레스 저장고 다운다 송고도
Less so, 3
노상권의 최세 다운다 지제 대신에 매세다 다운다 니제 네 대신에 노상권의 최세 대신에 리유셔나 리유비셔
less
다도
so.
상지 예비jen스
Okay, so we have, when we look at this word lineage, Bodhisattva lineage, we say that all sentient beings have the lineage of the Buddha. Or translated as Buddha nature a lot, but I'm going to stop using those words, and the Buddha lineage. So all sentient beings have Buddha lineage. If one is a hell being, a hungry ghost being, an animal, a human, a demigod, a god, it doesn't matter what kind of being he, she, or it is, if it is a sentient being, there is necessarily is Buddha lineage or Buddha nature. So Buddha lineage is possessed by all beings. And in the Uttara Tantra by Lord Maitreya, we find 3 signs that are given to prove this. I'm going to have to table those because I'm not going to mistranslate it. But you can look it up. It's in Lord Maitreya's Sublime Continuum where the points are made. And to establish this, there are 3 signs that are given. And they primarily go back to the fact that there is mental consciousness. And if there is this mental consciousness, there's necessarily Buddha lineage present. This word lineage is used in many cases. The Bodhisattva lineage begins at great compassion. The Buddha lineage is something, though, that abides specifically within all beings. So our mental consciousness is not truly established. So our mental consciousness is not truly established. Buddha Shakyamuni's mental consciousness was not truly established. The nature of our consciousnesses are the same, our consciousness and Buddha Shakyamuni's consciousness.
nga suye sema damba maru gungi ina sanje ya yo shaja man Buddha jiba res.
So just like the Buddha meditated on the lack of true establishment of his or her mind and became a Buddha, we can do the same and meditate on the lack of true establishment of our mind and become a Buddha.
shaja man Buddha sentient tanje sanje bi chedo an chusong yo res. Dosong kun chushi da. Chusong bi ye je de da da ji go re.
True.
Dosong kun chushi da. shaja man Buddha sentient tanje sanje bi chedo chugo kolore ba song yo res. Chusong bi ye je. Chuas. Chusong ba ja yo re.
So then, from this, then the Buddha, from this experience, then the Buddha taught us. So it says, this giving teachings part here, it says giving teachings above. Well, the Buddha did that because the Buddha did that and explained on the basis of his or her, does that and explains it on the basis of his or her actual experience that is the same as ours. I think that's it.
Riyu, sentient tanje sanje riyu ro. Riyu na da do sanje ge hebu jen res.
So all sentient beings have Buddha lineage. Nyingpo Chen, then are possessors of this essence. So therefore they are possessors, but because all sentient beings possess Buddha lineage, therefore they possess the essence of a Buddha.
Da sanje namba sanje ba ko sanje yo re. Jenda sanje ya me ba tene se ma res de. Namba sanje yo re, shuba sanje yo re. Hindu sanje yo re. Ne niwa da ye da to ru to sama sanje yo re se de. Namba sanje da da du res.
So this idea of Buddha lineage that is possessed by all sentient beings isn't something that's exclusive to Buddhists. It's not only Buddhists that have this Buddha lineage. All sentient beings have this Buddha lineage, are possessors of this essence of Buddha. Hindus possess this essence. Christians possess this essence. Muslims possess this essence. So this isn't something that we say, oh, Buddhists only possess this essence of Buddha. All sentient beings have this Buddha lineage. And I'm using this, there are two words being used, this essence of Buddha, and then the Buddha lineage. These are two different words that I'm using here. The essence of Buddha is the Buddha lineage, which is the lack of true establishment. Less so. The Yanjasura? Less so. Less so. Ding a triwa, the Ninji Chenpo yuna, Nyaran da dajum, Rila Nepa yar. Ninji Chenpo yuna? Okay. So here, this Bodhisattva lineage, we say, is ignited by great compassion. But if one has great compassion, that doesn't make him or her a bodhisattva. That's a step in the process to being a bodhisattva. But as we know, there are things that cause it and then things that it produces. So all sentient beings are our mothers, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction. These cause great compassion. But then great compassion afterwards, there's still studying and practice to do for that being, and he or she then has to go through the stages of the extraordinary attitude and then bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment. So even though we say that great compassion is the ignition of that bodhisattva lineage, it ignites it, but one isn't a bodhisattva until he or she actually generates the spirit of enlightenment, which isn't synonymous with great compassion. Great compassion is a step, but there's still studying and practices left to do from great compassion till you arrive at the spirit of enlightenment, or bodhicitta. Diksung Rinpoche.
당 아주 체리스 미시 샤하게 뒤서서 중앙마당 아주 체니 뒤한데 체니 레본가데 살아 잡아 동사 뭐 추노데 체니 도로도 쇠도 그래서
So this is dialectical. This is what debate is. This is what this in dialectics is. This is what we investigate when there are thousands and thousands of monks and nuns, and we have Drepung, Ganden, Sera in the outer monasteries, and we debate these topics. And this is what we're investigating. The meaning of things like this, the subtleties and so forth. This is what we're debating when you see those debates taking place. This is real philosophy. Yeah, Tseni is defined in so many different ways. Sometimes they call it debate, sometimes philosophy, sometimes dialectics. So that's the study of all those words that we use. Is this? This is what monks and nuns are studying. They're looking at this and they're tearing it apart in various ways, and that's what debate is. Diksung Rinpoche.
리빈네가는 처마리바 대신 쪽으로 처마리바 리빈네가 나는 처마리바로 처마리바.
So when we look at the five sciences, or we look at the five knowledges that you can acquire, one of those knowledges is a valid cognition, and this is what we're establishing. Things through valid cognition is what's occurring here, as the establishment through valid cognition.
별로와데 리빈네가도 강사질 상계 머무요 아레스 안 가실지니 손도 상계 머무레스.
So the explanation of those five are done in many different texts, and then they explain them in terms of each of the different categories.
아제도 저도 리빈네가 창대지래.
And the Geshe Rinpoche just merely mentions the five sciences.
주지사배 사자배는다. 어두들 리빈네가 창도고래.
And it talks about the Sakya Pandita's presentation of it. But there are many different scholars who have explained this. Diksung.
다 뉘바 말이야. 뉘바 즈바나 데바나 뎀베스 네 즈바나 데바나 하 냐네 제네들 즈바나 데바나 뎀베 춘너바 셰발 즈바 공그레스 파 너바 셰그 말스 너바 마젤라 젠라 네 너바 셰바 토나 젠다 너바 셰바 토나 신도 마가와 가부용 말스 control 차도 다 요다 쳔발라 소바 나장 네 control 다 차도 다 요다 쳔발라 소바 나장 때때 줄이 온 거를 맞도 줄이 뭐 저거 말해스 산래 맞지신 진나 쇼마다진스 control 다도 제바이나 시조조마도 control 시제부 용 말해스 쇼마다신 렌도 만내봐 녀도 저완조스 그 녀보야 보여서 그 때때 정가노 이러와 어때 뒤바래
Zupa dang tepa, the good so good.
저바다 대바다
The dunba.
네베 저바다 대바다 대바인다 안체 너바시발 저바 공그레 저바 공그로다 상주선 봐줘 저바 공그레 상주선 마이네 저바 공그로 팔 너바시고 말이야 젠라 너바시바 젠라 너바시바 춘너바 마시바 쇠진 naba sheba meje la, yen ji yen la,
Okay.
naba sheba yen naba tona, sen gabuyo ma des.
Less so.
Kontu dang, chadu dang, yu dang kari na, yu dang ba, sheba tona, yu ju su mero.
Zundang jar.
Shinto magawa dans.
Less so.
Kontu dang, chadu dang, yu dang, chamba su, la su ba na jang, renga zang le ma ji shins, te ma tsiyo ma res, jen na, shu ma da jins, chabu yung ma
Okay.
res, ne, rindu me ne ba nyodo, drewa njuro, so wa de, dunba dire.
Dunba. Okay, so number 7, you are patient and gentle, so that if someone harms you, you bear it and do no harm in return. If you see others hurting each other, you are very displeased. You seldom give rise to anger, jealousy, deceitfulness, and concealment, and the like. If these do arise, they are not intense, do not last long, and quickly disappear. Here we see you are patient and gentle. This word patient is referring to the patience that one who has this mind that aspires to enlightenment has. It's not saying that only bodhisattvas have patience. Others have this as well, but this is a quality that is specifically a bodhisattva does have. So patient and gentle, and then it explains qualifies what a bodhisattva's patience and what gentle means to him or her. So that if someone harms you, you bear it and do no harm in return. If you see others hurting each other, you are very displeased. You seldom give rise to anger, jealousy, deceitfulness, concealment, and the like. If these do arise, they are not intense, do not last long, and quickly disappear. So these are all the qualities, number 7, that one has when this mind that aspires to enlightenment or the spirit of enlightenment occurs. Diksun.
다 제바 내손도 찍가버레스 내손도 니와이다 돈을 찍가버레스 네 찍가신 제나 녀도 타와 내손을 제바 있는 주바야 타용으레스 타와다 대야 동안 주중으로서 동안 체부 용어마레스
Lessa.
총화다 대전시네 네 세전시다 희제하다 내주 상바 용거레스
Lessa.
코알라 이조하다 세전다달라 희지조스 어디 제바들에
Okay, so number 8, it is difficult for you to be reborn in miserable realms. Even if you are reborn there, you will quickly get freed. Even while there, your suffering will be slight, and because of it, you will be very disenchanted with cyclic existence and generate compassion for the beings there. So here it's saying that even if you are born into the lower realm of cyclic existence, it will serve to make your renunciation stronger, your desire to definitely emerge stronger, and your compassion will become stronger because you will generate it for the other beings that are suffering around you. So even if you do have to be born there, these qualities will arise from that experience, and that experience won't be very long and won't be very painful. It's saying that it will be you will quickly get free, and then it talks about even while there, your suffering will be slight. So even though you are in this horrendous state, the suffering that you're going to experience will be very small because of this mind that aspires to enlightenment. Diksung Rinpoche.
고바 장주 천지 소나 조제 두나 나가야 메종와다 산지 사진이 최베 차통대야 메셔바 베진지 최발레
Lesso.
장주 천지 소나 달라게도 조제나 나게 가는 그건 된대 라반조로스 와데 장주 생기 소나데 조 마르케도 조 예바이나 나가 건들 라바용 그래
Lesso.
네 베진지 슈바 베진 슈빈도 가서 가서 루인바 베진 산지 신조들 잡을 베진 세야지도 와
Lesso.
와데 슈빈도 레데 송도 와스
Lesso.
네 장주 생지 소나 건 달라게도 조제나 조 마레 그래도 조 예바나 나게 가는 그건데 되네들 라반조로스 강기 시민 당연지 산지신나 민강 그래 제다 그건데 지된 걸라 배워요 강가 담아야지데 샤주도는 세도나 쳐봤는 쳐봐봐
Less so. Less so. So number 9 then is this last quote, and then the questions from the householder Viradatta, who we explained before was like a king, and who was very wealthy and had questions that he asked of the Buddha. If the merit of the spirit of enlightenment were to take form, it would not even fill into the sky, nor does the merit of making material offerings to the Buddha equal even a mere portion of that. The questions of the householder Viradatta Sutra states, if whatever merit there is in the spirit of enlightenment had form, it would fill the entire vault of the sky and then exceed it. Were someone to fill the Buddha realms with jewels as numerous as the grains of sand of Ganges and offer this to the protector of the world, far superior is the merit in the offering of one who, joining his or her hands, reverently generates the spirit of enlightenment. There is no limit to the merit in this. So even though the spirit of enlightenment isn't form, it's saying if it were to take on a form, its form wouldn't fit in the sky. So if its merit were to take on a form, its form wouldn't fit in the sky. The sky would be too small to hold it. It says, in whatever merit there is in the spirit of enlightenment had form, it would fill the entire vault of the sky and then exceed it. So it shows the greatness of bodhicitta, of the spirit of enlightenment. Decent. Okay, so now we're getting into a new category, so we're going to end here today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And Su. So some Tibetans had arrived to do prayers for their mother in Lhasa, and Rinpoche said it's some sort of bad illness, some sort of bad illness. So please keep her and everyone in your prayers. There are no more details than that were given. So just someone's mother's ill, just keep them in your prayers. And thank you for coming. We'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Do you know more about it, Ted? Okay. And then I have to go quickly. I'm hurt. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traversed 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land, surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Rinpoche, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi